So you're planning a trip to Guatemala. I just got back from a 12-day trip and I think it's my new favorite country, which is saying a lot because I've spent months exploring Central and South America. It's extremely diverse, rich in history and culture. It's beautiful, budget-friendly, and the people are so kind. You could easily spend months exploring Guatemala. I chose 12 days and I think that was the right amount of time. There were a couple places that I wish I had a little bit more time to explore, but overall the 12 days seemed very doable and I saw everything that I really wanted to see. If you're coming from the US, it's pretty quick and simple. Fly to Guatemala City. There are no extra visa requirements, no vaccine requirements. There is one form that you'll have to fill out on your phone for customs, but it's pretty quick and simple. There are a couple things that I always do before international travels, and one of them is download an eSIM, and that way I can fill out forms, order an Uber, let people know that I landed safe. There are so many little things like this that I've learned over time that I put together a free travel checklist that I'll link down below if you want to prepare for an international trip like Guatemala. It's completely free. One of my biggest questions when I was planning the trip was the transportation because I was worried about getting in between all of the places that I wanted to see on the tight timeline that I had. What I found out is that Guatemala is actually extremely tourist friendly and they have all of these shuttles just for tourists that go in between all the hot spots, and they're actually really nice. I felt really safe on the shuttles and they're super easy to book. They have a bunch of tour companies just in the street that you'll walk by. Just walk in, ask about the shuttle, and you can book it. Some other ways to get around when you get there, they do have Uber in the major cities and it's pretty cheap and I felt very safe. There's obviously taxis. There are also tuk-tuks and chicken buses. If you don't know what a chicken bus is, it's basically an old American school bus, painted beautiful, crazy colors. They're the most local and cheapest option, but depending on the time of the day and the location, they're not always safe. So once you land in Guatemala City, I recommend that you just go straight to your first destination. For many people, it's Antigua. For me, I chose to take a domestic flight to Flores and start in Tikal National Park and work my way back down. Flores is this really beautiful, really quaint little town on an island in the middle of a lake, and it's about an hour from Tikal National Park. It was one of those places when I was planning my trip, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go, but as soon as I saw the first temple, I was blown away. It literally has the temple that is the symbol of Guatemala that's on their currency. I definitely recommend that you do not miss Tikal. In Flores, I stayed in Los Amigos hostel, and then I only had one full day, which I spent in the park. But ideally, I would spend 2 days here, one in the park and one just hanging out and exploring the lake. I would do Jorge's rope swing, which is basically a rope swing in somebody's yard that you take a boat to, and you can just hang out there, swing on the rope into the lake. Overall, the lake is just very, very beautiful, and Flores, at least when I was there, was very hot. So jumping in the lake is definitely necessary. When you visit Tikal, I recommend doing the sunrise tour and going with a guide. Yes, you can wander around without a guide, but there are so many things that you would never know just walking by that a guide can tell you about. But the coolest part about the sunrise tour is one, you just feel like you're transported back to that time. You're in this misty jungle with the sounds all around you, and it's barely getting bright, and you can just see these shadows of these giant temples like nothing you've seen before. And then you climb up to the tallest temple, and that's where you sit for sunrise. And it's like something I have never experienced before. It was so meditative. The way that the temples are built, everything is echoing. So you're hearing the howler monkeys, you're hearing all the birds. Some people are disappointed because they think that they're gonna get this beautiful sunrise. And if you're looking for a colorful sunrise, it's not your place. Because the jungle is so thick and dense, there's a thick fog in the morning time. So basically, there's not a sunrise, it just gradually gets brighter, but it depends what kind of mindset you're going into it with. Also, it gets very, very hot. I wouldn't go much later in the morning if you don't do the sunrise tour. The next day, I hopped on one of those commuter shuttles and I took a 9-hour shuttle to Lanquin, which is the closest town to Semuc, Champey, where you'll find stunning turquoise pools, cascading waterfalls, and caves to explore. After you get to Lanquin, you need to take a 4-wheel drive shuttle to your accommodation if you're staying closer to the park. I stayed at Gringo's Hostel, which was really beautiful. They had a pool, it's walking distance to the park. I also only had one day here, so I packed it full of all the activities. You definitely can do it in one day, but it's also just a really great place to relax, hang out, chill. So if I could choose again, I would spend 2 days here. 1 exploring the caves and 1 exploring the natural pools. So in the morning I did this cave tour through the hostel. We walked to the park, went in the cave, we got our candles. The only pictures and videos I got were airdropped to me by other people because I didn't bring my phone in there. But it was one of the coolest experiences of all of my travels. This cave was just a pure adventure. Then I spent the afternoon climbing up to the mirador overlooking the pools and then swimming in the pools. I literally stayed until they shut down the park, and it was just me, the other solo traveler I was hanging out with, and then the locals, and it was so fun. I felt like a kid again, jumping in, playing in the waterfalls. It was my favorite day of my Guatemala trip. After that, I had another full day on the bus, about 7 hours to get to Antigua. I walked around the town, and Antigua quickly became one of my new favorite cities. I would stay there as a digital nomad long term. The weather is perfect, the cobblestone streets, the ruins. Antigua actually used to be the capital of Guatemala until it got destroyed by an earthquake, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Then the next day was just a chill day in Antigua. I was preparing for the Acatenango trek the next day, which is an overnight hike up to an active volcano that's actively erupting. Bucket list experience. We got to the tour company at 6 a.m., packed our stuff, ate breakfast, and headed to the base of the hike. I will just tell you, do not carry extra things that you don't need. I underestimated the hike for sure. It's hard. And the altitude is no joke, so just know that. You can rent poles, which I did, and they're very helpful. I would rent at least one. And then you can also hire a porter to carry your bag for you if that's something that you think would make the hike more accessible for you. It's about a 7-hour hike to base camp. From base camp, you can opt to hike another 40 minutes up Fuego, which is the active volcano, and it's probably the closest you'll be to an active volcano ever in your life, and it is magical. I definitely recommend doing it.
Whoa.
Wow. Holy. If you can't, you can still see it from base camp, and it's still amazing. The next day, you have the option to hike up Acatenango, which apparently is even harder. I wasn't feeling well, so I didn't do it, and I caught the sunrise from base camp, which was still amazing. Definitely recommend. We had breakfast and then headed back down. And then as soon as we got back to Antigua, I got in a taxi and I went to Lake Atitlan. I was just ready to have another chill time on the lake. I stayed in an Airbnb there with beautiful views. In Lake Atitlan, there are 3 major towns for tourists. San Pedro, which is basically the more backpacker party vibe town. San Marcos, where I stayed, is the hippie town. And Panajachel is kind of the main hub and gateway to Lake Atitlan. I stayed in San Marcos and spent most of my time in San Marcos. It was very chill, very laid back. I really, really loved the vibe. My first full day at the lake was a very chill day. I was recovering from the hike. I just explored the town a little bit. I spent hours at this beautiful cafe called the Hidden Garden, and then I got a massage, and that was basically the day. The next day I got up at 5 a.m. to see sunrise from Indian Nose, which is a hike and a viewpoint overlooking the lake. It was one of those things that was a non-negotiable for me. I really wanted to do it for some reason, but after having done it, honestly, I could have gone without it. The day I went, the weather just wasn't the best. There wasn't a good sunrise and there wasn't a good view. And then the top was just overly touristy to the point where it wasn't enjoyable for me. So I will say that it is a nice to do, not a must do. Then I spent the rest of the day at the nature reserve in San Marcos, and that I will say is a must do. It is beautiful. You can hang out overlooking the lake, in the lake, and then they have this platform that's 20 meters high that you can jump into the lake. It's actually very high. But definitely worth it, really fun. I could have spent a whole day there. The next day, I had to start heading back to Antigua. I took a boat to Penajachel and explored the nature reserve there, which was really, really impressive. There are hiking trails through suspension bridges, monkeys that you can see, a whole butterfly garden, and waterfalls that you can swim in. Really, really fun. You only need like a couple hours there. After doing the nature reserve, I got on a shuttle back to Antigua. I spent one night there, the next day explored a couple places, then I caught my flight back to the US, and it was an amazing trip. So if you have any questions, drop them below and have an amazing trip.